When the United States conducts operations against Iran or against Iranian-backed targets across the Middle East, the public conversation almost always focuses on one thing: a strike here, a bombing run there. One aircraft gets named, one weapon gets credited, and then the news cycle moves on. But if you've spent any time seriously studying military aviation, you already know that's not how this works. Modern American air power isn't a headline, it's a system. And the way the United States actually goes to war from the air, the sequencing, the layering, the sheer coordination involved, is one of the most extraordinary achievements in the history of aviation. Not because of any single aircraft, because of all of them working together. Iran is one of the most complex and heavily defended target environments in the world. And walking through exactly what the US would bring to bear against it, and why, tells you everything you need to know about where military aviation stands today. Let's start from the top. The foundation of any US air campaign isn't a jet on a runway. It's a document. It's called an air tasking order. It can run hundreds of pages long, and it coordinates every aircraft, every tanker track, every electronic warfare mission, every surveillance orbit, down to the minute. Nothing flies without it. Nothing fires without it. It is the air campaign, on paper, before the first engine starts. Against Iran, an air tasking order would be coordinating simultaneous activity across multiple domains. Air Force assets flying from bases in Qatar and Bahrain, naval aviation launching from carrier strike groups in the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea, and potentially long-range bomber missions originating from a place called Diego Garcia. Diego Garcia is a remote British atoll in the Indian Ocean, roughly 2,500 miles from Iran. It hosts a U.S. military facility with a runway capable of supporting heavy bomber operations, a deep-water port, and the logistical infrastructure needed to sustain high-tempo strike missions. It's the kind of place that doesn't appear in news photographs, and that is precisely the point. Iran isn't a simple target environment. The country operates a layered integrated air defense system that includes Russian-supplied surface-to-air missile batteries, domestically produced equivalents, and a network of early warning radars that have been continuously upgraded for decades. That layered architecture is exactly why the composition of any U.S. strike package matters so deeply. You cannot just send a conventional aircraft toward a nuclear facility buried under 80 to 90 meters of solid mountain rock. You need a specific combination, and the U.S. military has spent 30 years building exactly that. Let's talk about the aircraft that would actually put weapons on target. The F-35 Lightning II is the cornerstone of modern American strike aviation. 3 variants are in service: the conventional Air Force version, the Marine Corps short takeoff and vertical landing variant, and the carrier-based Navy version built for catapult launches and arrested landings. In an Iranian context, the F-35's most critical attribute isn't its weapons load, it's its stealth. The aircraft is designed with a radar cross-section roughly comparable to a metal golf ball. A conventional 4th-generation fighter presents a radar return more than 1,000 times larger. Against Iran's surface-to-air missile networks, systems specifically designed to kill aircraft at standoff range, stealth isn't a luxury. It is the price of entry. Without it, the mission doesn't begin. The F-35 carries all of its weapons internally, keeping its radar signature clean from takeoff to target. Its sensor suite gives pilots 360-degree situational awareness fused directly into the airframe. U.S. Air Force F-35s are forward deployed to Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Navy F-35s deploy aboard carrier strike groups operating in the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea. The F-15 Echo Strike Eagle brings something entirely different. The F-35 owns the stealth mission, but the Strike Eagle brings raw payload capacity that no stealth aircraft can match. It's a 4th-generation twin-engine aircraft built for deep strike. It can carry enormous loads of ordnance at speeds exceeding Mach 2.5. For hardened facilities like the Natanz enrichment site, layers of reinforced concrete below ground, the Strike Eagle and its heavy bunker-busting weapons represent a different kind of solution. Speed, mass, and precision. Not stealth, firepower. Naval aviation contributes its own strike capability through the FA-18 Echo and FA-18 Foxtrot Super Hornet, the Navy's primary carrier-based strike aircraft. The Super Hornet isn't as stealthy as the F-35, but it is combat-proven across decades of operations in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and Yemen. The two-seat variant carries a dedicated weapons system officer in the rear seat for sensor management and targeting. Operating from carriers positioned safely in the Arabian Sea, well outside effective Iranian missile range, Super Hornets can deliver long-range standoff strikes while the carriers themselves remain out of danger. If the mission calls for destroying the most deeply buried, most hardened targets, the facilities Iran has specifically engineered to survive conventional attack, the conversation moves from fighters to bombers. The B-2 Spirit is America's premier strategic stealth bomber. All of them belong to the 509th Bomb Wing at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. Every single one. Its flying wing design, radar-absorbent materials, and carefully managed surface geometry give it a radar cross-section reportedly comparable to a large bird. And the B-2 is the only aircraft in the world capable of carrying the massive ordnance penetrator, a 30,000-pound weapon specifically developed with Iranian hardened underground facilities in mind. It can penetrate 200 feet of reinforced concrete before detonating. The B-2 can carry two of them. To put that in perspective, Fordow, Iran's most heavily fortified enrichment site, is buried 80 to 90 meters inside a mountain. No other aircraft and no other weapon in any nation's inventory could threaten it from the air. The B-2 has previously operated from Diego Garcia on combat missions over Afghanistan in 2001 and Iraq in 2003, demonstrating round-trip missions exceeding 40 hours with aerial refueling. The reach and the endurance to strike Iran from halfway around the world exists. It has been demonstrated in combat. The B-1 Bravo Lancer brings a different kind of power. It lacks the B-2's stealth, but it carries the largest conventional payload in the U.S. Air Force inventory, up to 75,000 pounds across 3 internal weapons bays. And critically, it can carry 24 long-range cruise missiles with ranges exceeding 500 miles. That matters enormously. In an Iranian scenario, the B-1 Bravo's role would be standoff. It never needs to enter Iranian airspace. It can position itself in international airspace and launch a concentrated salvo at multiple targets simultaneously. That's not just a capability. For a target country as geographically large as Iran, roughly the size of Alaska, it is a strategic advantage. Now here's the part that almost never makes the evening news, and it may be the most important part of this entire video. The strike aircraft are what gets photographed. They're what gets mentioned in briefings. But no strike package, not one, flies without an entire structure of support aviation underneath it. Aircraft that don't carry bombs. Aircraft that aren't designed to be glamorous. Aircraft that quietly make every single other part of the mission possible. The most fundamental constraint in any long-range air operation is fuel. Many target sets inside Iran are 500 to 1,000 miles from U.S. forward bases in the region. Strike aircraft may need to hold in a refueling track before pushing to the target. They'll absolutely need fuel for the return. The math simply doesn't work without tankers in the air. The KC-135 Strato tanker entered service in 1957. There are approximately 370 in the active U.S. inventory today. Let that number sit for a moment. An aircraft that first flew in the Eisenhower administration is still, right now, the backbone of American aerial refueling. It can carry 200,000 pounds of transferable fuel. It can offload that fuel at altitude while both aircraft are flying in formation. It is one of the most quietly consequential machines in the history of aviation. The KC-46 Alpha Pegasus is its replacement, built on a Boeing 767 airframe with advanced refueling systems and the ability to service multiple receiver aircraft. In a large-scale operation against Iran, tanker tracks would be established over the Arabian Sea and the Gulf of Oman and would run continuously for the duration of the campaign. The E-3 Sentry, the Airborne Warning and Control System, is the airborne nerve center of the entire operation. Its rotating radome houses a radar capable of tracking hundreds of aircraft simultaneously at ranges exceeding 250 miles. At all altitudes, including low-level targets that ground-based radar can't detect due to the curvature of the Earth. In an Iranian operation, the E-3 manages the complete airspace picture, tracking Iranian combat air patrols, deconflicting the strike packages, directing defensive fighters, and maintaining real-time situational awareness for every commander in the air and on the ground. If the E-3 sees the airspace, the RC-135 rivet joint listens to it. The rivet joint is a signals intelligence platform. It collects electronic emissions from radar systems, communications networks, and command infrastructure. Before a strike, it answers the most critical question planners need answered. What does Iran's air defense system look like right now as our aircraft are inbound? That intelligence flows directly to the aircraft responsible for disrupting it. That aircraft is the EA-18 Golf Growler. The Growler is a derivative of the Super Hornet modified to carry tactical jamming systems that can flood enemy radar frequency bands with interference, rendering tracking and fire control radars unable to generate targeting solutions. In practical terms, Growlers open corridors through air defenses. The strike aircraft follow those corridors, remove the Growler from the package, and even a stealth aircraft's margin of safety narrows considerably. The Growler is exclusively carrier-based in U.S. service. Finally, there are the unmanned platforms, and they deserve more credit than they typically receive. The MQ-9 Reaper can orbit a target area for up to 27 hours in an ISR configuration, providing continuous electro-optical and infrared intelligence on target activity, personnel movements, and defensive preparations. The RQ-4 Global Hawk operates above 60,000 feet, carrying sensors capable of imaging large areas of territory in a single pass, with an endurance of up to 30 hours. For a strike, during it, and after battle damage assessment, someone is always watching. That persistent presence, invisible to the naked eye, continuous in time, is something no crewed aircraft can match. Now, here's a question I want you to sit with, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments. If you had to strip this package down to one aircraft, the one you'd build the entire mission around, what would you choose? There's no wrong answer, but there is a best answer, and I suspect this community is going to disagree about it. Take any single piece of this architecture out, and the system weakens. In some cases, it fails entirely. The F-35 is needed because stealth allows it to operate inside defended airspace without triggering the radar systems that would guide missiles toward it. The Growler is needed because even stealth has limits, and jamming provides the margin. The rivet joint is needed because electronic warfare only works if you know what you're jamming. The B-2 is needed because only it can carry the weapon capable of threatening the most deeply buried facilities. The tankers are needed because no aircraft in this fight has the range to do it alone. The drones are needed because commanders need to see the target before, during, and after. This is the architecture the United States has built over 30 years of sustained air combat. Desert Storm, Allied Force, Iraqi Freedom, the counter-ISIS campaign. Each conflict taught lessons. Each lesson was absorbed. Each aircraft in today's inventory represents a specific answer to a specific problem that previous operations identified. The result is an air power system of extraordinary complexity, and in the right circumstances, extraordinary effectiveness. When the United States goes to war from the air against Iran, it isn't one aircraft, or one missile, or one headline. It's the F-35 making the first cuts through defended airspace. It's the Growler blinding the radars that might track them. It's the rivet joint that told planners which radars to blind. It's the tankers orbiting over the Arabian Sea, ensuring nothing runs dry. It's the B-2 flying from halfway around the world, carrying the only weapon capable of reaching certain buried targets. It's the B-1B standing off with a full magazine of cruise missiles. It's the Reaper feeding live video before, during, and after. And it's the E-3 overhead managing all of it simultaneously. American air power against Iran isn't a single platform. It's a system, designed, refined, and maintained over decades of hard-won operational experience. And now you know exactly what that system looks like. If this breakdown gave you something useful, And if the architecture of modern American air power is the kind of thing that keeps you coming back, subscribe to Elite Aero Life. There is a great deal more to cover.